continue. Yeah. Continue. Okay. So hello again, everyone. So my name is Jessica Chase, for those of you who haven't met me, and I'm the assistant curator with the county museums. And Janice has been a very long-time friend of the museum system here. And so we're so excited that she could join us. And we're also very excited that all of you could join us today for the presentation on Ratinenhayenthos and the Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary. So I am going to give Janice a proper introduction, but before that, I also wanted to offer a land acknowledgement. So we would like to acknowledge and honor the fact that we are on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Wendat people. We are very grateful for the opportunity to be able to meet on this land today, albeit virtually, of course. And we give thanks to the generations of people that have taken care of this land. Now, I have a bit of a bio for Janice here that I wanted to make sure that I read, because it has some incredible information in it. So, yeah, Janice is just, she's great. So Kahehtoktha, that is Janice's Mohawk name, and Janice sits with the Bear Clan in the Mohawk Nation and is from Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. She was raised in a farming family and is a traditional seed keeper and gardener. She loves storytelling, art, history, and cooking, and Janice is an established professional artist and teacher. She has published academic and creative writings alike. She is an incredible artist if you've seen any of her pieces here at art shows in the past. Janice is also a volunteer co-chair with Ratinenhayenthos, which means they are the farmers of seed. Ratinenhayenthos is a local nonprofit organization founded by members of the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte, and is host to a living seed collection of 300 Indigenous and heirloom seed varieties of vegetables, herbs, and flowers. Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary and Learning Center, or KSSLC, was established in 2018 and is a sacred space for growing and curating the seed collection. The Seed Sanctuary is the first Indigenous seed sanctuary in Canada that we know about, with this innovative action towards seed conservation, so primarily protection and preservation, and sharing seed-saving education for future generations of seed custodians, gardeners, and farmers. I also apologize prior to handing it over to Janice in case you've heard any lawnmower noise. I'm sitting in an office at Macaulay Church, and the lawnmower, of course, the gentleman is here today to cut the lawn. That's just how these things go. But I will hand it over to our very good friend, Janice Brant, who has actually been connected with the museum since she was in university. So it's been a long-standing relationship, and we're so excited that this partnership can continue. So Janice, I will let you take it away, and I will share the presentation full screen now from beginning. There we go. All right, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I just want to check to see that everyone can hear me okay. And I'm sorry that you're not able to see me, and that I'm not actually able to see anyone really either, because I'm using a cell phone and not my computer, which I prefer my computer. But so thank you for joining us this morning for this conversation about Ratinenhayenthos and Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary and Learning Center. All of your Genugeha pronunciation was wonderful, Jessica. Thank you. I know these words can sort of be intimidating to people when they first see them, but it only takes a short time and most people catch on, and we're really honored and proud to be able to use our own language, that we still have Genugeha language to be able to give this organization those names. So I guess I want to start, maybe it might seem like in a strange place, but I want to start by asking everyone to think just for a moment about the seeds that they eat every day. And that can be seeds that are immature, or it can be seeds that are fully mature. And by like fully mature, for example, I mean, if you eat dried beans and you cook them and prepare them into a dish or something, or if you maybe eat strawberries or cucumbers, those seeds would be, from the strawberry and cucumber, those seeds would be immature, where beans or corn seeds that you consume or sunflower seeds would be fully mature. So I was hoping to have this be a little bit interactive, in the sense that I'm not able to see the chat, so I'm going to have to rely on Jess a lot for this. But if you feel comfortable, type in a couple of things that come to your mind when I asked the question about reflecting on the seeds that we eat every day. So I just want to give like a little pause just to give you a chance to type that in to the chat if you'd like. And maybe Jess, if you don't mind, maybe you could tell me what some of the things are that come up.
Okay, so it seems in the chat here we have kidney beans, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, coffee beans, tomatoes and cucumbers. So all delicious things so far.
So that actually is wonderful. That's fantastic. And for me, I would have to add a few more things to that list. Like, for example, the fact that I eat bread and pasta off and on through most days, and other things like that also come from kernels or seeds. And so much of the food that we eat every day comes from seeds. And also, I guess the reason I want to say that is just to raise our awareness about seed. And so the need for seed conservation and seed saving awareness and education is really important because we do consume a lot of seed in our day-to-day diet. And Ratinenhayenthos and Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary received a collection of seeds through the Sisters of Providence of St. Vincent de Paul in Kingston when they closed the Heirloom Seed Sanctuary there. And so our group, Ratinenhayenthos, formed in August 2017 to become candidates to receive the collection and to start building a relationship with the sisters. And also our sister organization, KSSLC, which is Kingston Area Seed System Initiative. And similarly, they formed, I believe, as a result of the same thing, a concern for the seeds and what would happen to them when the sisters closed the heirloom seed, or were planning to close the heirloom seed sanctuary. So that's kind of how all of this started. And what we recognized early on was the amount of indigenous seeds that were in the collection. And of course, we wanted to learn and know more about that. Plus, we also recognize, like within our own community, so many seed keepers, and that they're very older people, elderly people. And one of the things that when we started raising awareness about what we were doing, came to us off and on and said, I have seeds. And unfortunately, maybe their child or their grandchildren weren't in a position to take them on or weren't interested in taking that on. And so they were saying, well, would you receive our seeds as well, land race to our community? And that made us really excited, and it helped to really help us start strategic planning and creating this Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary and Learning Center. So some of the ideas we did bring from the Sisters of Providence to Tyendinaga, and then some of it we modified to meet our needs more specifically, and to, I guess, to emphasize our own culture and our own language, and to reinvigorate the connection between Indigenous people and many of those seeds. So that's kind of a really short history of Ratinenhayenthos and Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary. We're very new. Ratinenhayenthos, like I said, formed in about August 2017 in response to what we had been learning about the Heirloom Seed Sanctuary in Kingston. And then we were able to, with a lot of effort, establish the Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary and Learning Center on a 15-acre parcel of organic communal land in Tyendinaga, and that was with the support of the community and the band council for that to be able to happen. And that gave us basically a place to have the gardens. And so we're really grateful for that opportunity and to be able to do this seed conservation work and also the work of seed saving education. So I'll just speak, I guess we can speak maybe to the next slide, Jess. And please feel free to put any questions you may have in the chat. And maybe Jess would read them to me and such.
Hi, Janice.
So okay.
I'll just pop in because we did have a few more people contribute some, ideas of seeds that they recognize or have or are familiar with. So chickpeas, barley, whole grain bread, cereals, tomatoes were also put in there too. And I just wanted to apologize to everybody because for some reason my full screen presentation will not share. So that's why you can see my cursor moving around in there a little bit. But hopefully this screen is large enough for everyone to see the slide appropriately.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you. Thank you everyone for putting some of those seeds into the chat because yes, I guess the reason that I like to talk about that part is to help us connect personally with the idea of seeds and seed saving and the importance of seed by recognizing the amount of seed that we consume. So this slide here shows an aerial view of the current gardens of Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary. They're located approximately 450 feet from the road, which is a recommended sort of buffer zone from a high for traffic. And that just, there's still carbon monoxide and different kind of airborne things, but by being offset from the road, it just helps to just reduce some of that for the plants and the gardens that are there. And this site is in the heart of our community, which we are so honored to be at. And it's a 15-acre parcel that's mostly a field, but with a portion of it being a wooded area. And so the way that we set up the gardens was similar to what some of the things they were already doing at the Heirloom Seed Sanctuary, was to think about preventing cross-pollinations and being able to grow a variety of things in different beds to rotate through and such. And so in the spokes in this one, you see there's about 28 beds. So they're about 3 feet wide and 20 feet long. We didn't exactly mean for them to be that narrow, but the grass is sort of encroached a little bit already. But we work steadily on all of those things at the garden. And in the other photo, actually, that was something that we thought was really interesting at the Sisters of Providence. And it was just the idea that there's more to these seeds than meets the eye, and that there's a magic and a spirituality. And that's why we call it a seed sanctuary. I think that we want to invite people into this place with the idea that we are doing something very sacred, and we're connecting with the earth and the seeds and our language and culture. And so when we want people to come into this space, that they have a good mind and that they recognize what we're trying to do in that space, and that the seeds are sacred to us, and we want to conduct ourselves in that manner when we're working there. So we can go to the next slide. So the rematriation anniversary happened just about a month ago. And so we celebrated together with the Sisters of Providence and Cassie to celebrate our 2nd year anniversary. So that's how new all of the seed rematriation is, that we've only had the collection for 2 years, even though we started the seed sanctuary in the fall of 2018. That was to start to get things ready to be able to receive the seeds in the spring and be able to plant and give them a home. And so it's very, it was very humble beginnings. It just happened to be a wet time, and the land wasn't dry, and we had to dig beds by hand and do a lot of impromptu work that if we had more time would have been done ahead, and we have finally caught up, and now we do have beds prepped ahead, which is where we really want to be. So that first planting was very challenging, but we were able to get it done. And in our first season in 2019, we were able to grow 13 varieties from the collection. And that doesn't probably sound like a lot, but for something brand new on a property and such, it was quite an undertaking. And so in 2020, our aim was to double or more. And so we were able to actually grow 37 varieties from the collection last season, which is wonderful. We're aiming this year for 50 varieties from the collection. The idea of this is to make sure that the entire collection is grown out in a 5 to 7 year cycle. And that helps to keep up the viability of all of the seeds in the collection. And there also, we realized after we accepted this responsibility and created a new home for the seeds, that they also were in great need of restoration themselves, that the conditions at the previous seed sanctuary were declining. And there was also changes like in terms of the amount of squirrels and different things like that. And it was really starting to affect the collection. And some of the beans were getting less and less and less. And so the amount of seed was really decreasing for some of the varieties. And so it really, overall, the collection needed quite a bit of attention, and not just growing it out in the cycle, but actually making sure that there is enough seed for the grow outs to happen. And so we're working on all of that with Cassie, because they are what we have agreed to, I guess, as organizations, is that we'd like to be supportive of one another and back each other up as to support the collection and to make sure that the collection stays healthy. So I see there something just popped up on my screen. This is wonderful. I saw a question. I probably missed some other things, but I did see one that just came by. And so it said, what was grown? And so some of the things that we were successful in growing so far have been some peas, some different kinds of beans. We grew out the golden bantam corn. We added a new bean to the collection from our community that has great significance to us. That's the Duane Baptiste bean. It's quite well known, but yet rare to find. And then also we grew out quite a number of varieties of tomatoes, which are one of the probably easier things for us to curate at the Seed Sanctuary. Black Prince, Golden Delight, a Romano. There's been several now tomato varieties. We did try a couple of the squashes from the collection, but unfortunately we had vine borers affect them. And so we will try those again. And we have a professional gardener. She has been the caretaker of the collection for 10 years for the Sisters of Providence, and now for the last 2 years with us, Ratinenhayenthos. We've only been able to contract her. We've not been able yet to hire her full time, but we would like to, because we would like to have her in a mentorship role with some of our youth and have interns learning this collection and how to curate it and take care of it. And then something else that we do, just like the seeds were rematriated to us, that we also want to help rematriate some of the Indigenous seeds in the collection as they become more plentiful and more available to some of the other First Nation communities in the area. did you want to take a pause and maybe we could have some of the questions, or?
Yeah, we could definitely. So I see that. So Renee's curious about like what is growing out? Does that simply mean like taking a seed and trying to grow it to its full potential?
Yeah, so growing it out, exactly. So we take the seed basically from the seed nursery. And then we grow it in the, we do whatever is needed. Like, so if it's a tomato plant, we usually make it into a seedling first. So there's that process. And then some things can be direct seeded into the garden beds. And so, yeah, so we grow it, but we have to grow it, I guess, to the best possible results for seed keeping. So there has to be a certain population of plants. They have to be able to reach their full maturity before harvest. And hopefully that there's not too much insects or things that bother them, or animals. And all of our gardens are fenced to try to protect them from things in that open field. But there are some things that are harder to protect plants from, like vine borer and things like that. And so we do use special things to curate the collection, such as we use pollination fabrics, we use shade fabric, we use pollination cages, we use cages for the safety of say like corn, which has a lot of predators. By caging it, it guarantees that we at least get some seeds, even if some is taken by animals. And so these are normal realities of these kind of growing gardens and growing, and in particular in our situation, we're growing for seed. So the first priority is seed, not food, which is sometimes like not what people think necessarily. So food, though, is a byproduct of growing seed, which we can then share with our community, and we love to do that and have them taste it. So in those photos, you see a stake marking the corn, and it has its ungwehule, or its Kenhteke name, onaste. And so we're trying to put the Mohawk language visible at the seed sanctuary, and for our own people and for visitors to see and experience our culture and our language. And it also helps to keep everything at the seed sanctuary well organized by labeling. And that's something we learned from the sisters. And then the other photo shows the golden bantam corn. And then in the tradition of the Haudenosaunee, we braid our seed braids. And so we did braid a small one there. And then the 2 jars of the Duane Baptiste bean. And so one of those jars of beans was distributed to the community in seed packets. And 1 jar was donated to Sovereign Seeds. And Sovereign Seeds is a new organization. And in response to COVID-19, some communities were looking for and in need for seeds. And so we were able to help support other Native people and other community groups by donating a bit of seeds for them to grow. So we can look at the next slide, Jess. Is there a few more questions or another question?
Yeah, while I change the slide over, Renee was just curious also the road that the seed sanctuary is off of, where exactly is it located?
So it is located on York Road on the Ratinenhayen Mohawk territory, and there is no entrance from that road. Right now, we do enter the property just using kind of like a path, but the gardens themselves are sort of like, I don't want to say restricted, but they are in the sense that it's not open to the public without appointment. So we are hopefully at some point going to make a lane that comes in and that visitors can use, and employees. And volunteers and such, but we just haven't reached that point yet. And that's going to take also some negotiation with our community, because yeah, we want to be as gentle on this piece of land as possible. And so might seem a little underdeveloped right now, but we just want to take our time and do the proper planning. And we just had a student from Sir Stamford Fleming. She was in the Lands Ecological Management Program, and she just did an assessment sort of for us on our parcel of land and took a look at the flora and fauna and made some recommendations and different things. So just really exciting stuff. I hope that helps answer that. But yeah, it's on York Road. And so if you know where our police station is, it's right next door to that. And then it is connected to our health center and our band administration office by a pathway that goes through a small wooded area. And that's the parking lot that we use also there behind the administration building. We just park there and then walk through the path to the garden area. It's really quite beautiful. Something that we noticed early on at the gardens when we first set up was that there was this very interesting and unusual bird that kept coming and landing on the fence that we made and singing a very beautiful and joyful song. And one of our board members, Nikki Otten, who also studies at Trent University and does some teaching there, said, I believe I learned about this bird, and it's called the bobolink, and they're a rare species, and they're species at risk. And so we did learn some more about that, and we were able to protect its habitat. And the student from Fleming actually discovered the bobolink nest and photographed without being too invasive, was able to take a couple photos of the nest and the eggs. So it's more than just a seed sanctuary. It's a sanctuary for all things, that are part of this life process. And so we're just really proud of and excited about the work we're doing there. Thank you. Thank you for your questions. So are we ready to talk about this slide?
I think so. Yep. There's nothing else in the chat so far, but I'll let you know after this slide too.
Okay. So can everyone still hear me okay? Because I noticed I had moved back away from my phone a bit just to look at my paperwork, but I feel like yeah. Anyway, I'm excited to talk about this photo and these little hands digging the seeds out of this. This was actually called an Algonquin pumpkin. It's not part of the seed collection at KSSLC yet, but it could possibly be. We were at Seedy Saturday in Kingston for outreach, and we were sitting beside the Sisters of Providence, and on the other side was Cassie. And so it had already become known that we would be the recipients of the seeds. And this little girl came. We had opened the squash so that everyone could see inside it. And then after a lot of the day had passed, this one little person came and she just started working at it and taking out all the seeds and saving them. So we really like this photo. So a lot of what we do is hands-on. It's experiential learning. It's land-based, reconnecting outside. COVID has presented some challenges for us, of course, and we're actually going to make a post about that today on Facebook because people are asking to volunteer and help, but with the lockdown, we're not allowed to host right now, and that's okay. We're working on things as we can with the board and with the gardener, and so things will still go ahead. The work will not cease to happen. It's just that it'll be a little more challenging without the assistance of all the different hands that want to be involved. But as soon as the lockdown is over, we hope that we can, again, with precautions, begin to have some work bees outside again, because they're certainly needed, and we certainly have jobs and tasks that need efforts all the time in this process. And so what we focus on is the life of seed from seed to seed, and then on the best practices of seed saving. And we try to apply what we like to call sacred science or sacred ecology, and that's our traditional ecological knowledge, can all be summed up into our Haudenosaunee cosmology. And so we look at many different things when we're looking at planting and planning and doing this special work that we're doing. So some of that special things that we try to do is that when we gather on the site, we open with the words of thanksgiving. And that helps to establish in our minds and in our hearts what we're there to do and the relationship that we have with plants and the land. And that is also a sacred relationship as much as it is a physical or any other kind. And so we sort of want to embody that. And then when we're thinking about our planting, we try to align ourselves with the moon and the constellations, because that's something that's ancient to the Ongwehome people. And we want to make sure our youth and future generations know about these things, that they know about the seeds and how to care for them and how to grow them and how to make sure that they maintain their integrity and the diversity of foods that we have to eat. And yeah, that's just kind of in a nutshell. We just want to honor the natural cycles of life. And we want to honor that we are all influenced by the cosmology, the moon, the sun, the heat of the day and the day length, and the constellations. And so I thank you for letting me share about that, because it's really some of what defines us and some of what makes us so unique. And as far as we know, we're the only place in Canada that is doing this kind of work in this special way. And with these kind of, I guess, high level standards, I guess, in order to raise the best possible seeds. So the last slide, Jess, is, excuse me.
Just bear with me 1 second, but you go ahead and start and I will get it on the screen somehow. It's being a pain.
So the last slide, when it comes up, it shows our beautiful Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary logo, which was, I'm glad to say, I was the artist that drew it. And we did start with a few little drawings. And then from there, with the board of Ratinenhayén, so Ratinenhayenthos board, we just kept redrafting it until we found something that spoke to us all, I guess, equally. And this is the logo that was designed for the Seed Sanctuary. We wanted something that expressed our culture, something that used our language, but that also people could maybe recognize in English. And we get asked every once in a while, are those real seeds? And yes, they are. Pardon me. So in the other photo is a photo of a youth. She's been volunteering with us since before we could even count her as a youth, because they have to be 14. And I think she started when she was 12. So she's sort of been with us all along, and she's trying out the wheel hoe. And so the youth really are an inspiration to us. And a lot of what we do and are working so hard for is to ensure that they have an opportunity to learn about these things. And I think also to realize their own connection with seeds and to help bring that information into the future. So there, I'm gonna stop. And just kind of open things up for conversation and for dialogue.
So if anyone does have any questions for Janice, then feel free to, again, pop them into the chat. But I also have a few questions prepared as well, because I have things that I'm curious about, and maybe you're curious about it and don't even know yet. So should we start with one of my questions, Janice, and see if anyone is? Sure. So I'm curious about volunteers. So the idea of like, what is the best, as the seed sanctuary is not currently, accessible to the public per se, but how might a volunteer get involved, or is maybe financial support the best type of support right now for the sanctuary, rather than, physical in-person volunteering? If you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Sure, thank you, Jess. There are so many ways to get involved, and certainly donations are always welcome. And we have a few different ways for donating. We do have a donate button on our website, which please is still under development. So there's lots of information that isn't posted yet, and we're working on that currently. We also can receive e-transfers, but I believe we have to have a question and a password right now for that when we do one of those. And then of course we can receive cash or checks if people prefer that. Excuse me, my computer just made a noise there. So yeah, certainly financial support is very welcome. We really, we don't want to discourage people from coming out, but we do have to wait for the restrictions to change a bit before we can have people on the site. And especially, it's especially hard in the spring because that's when we need the most support on site with the beds and all the different things that have to happen. So unfortunately, unfortunately, that's not a great time for us, but we have worked through it. We worked through it last year. We worked through it this year so far. And so we just will, I think there's a lot of good energy behind this and a lot of positive thinking and a lot of people that really care about the environment and conservation. And I think people have been really excited to hear about seed conservation and that this is happening at this level in this community, and that we actually need more of this, and that we want to be a role model for other communities, not just Native communities, all communities or regions could have something like this to help foster food varieties and to produce high quality seed that is adapted to the region and to the environment. So it's liable to be much more successful than seeds that come from California or other places that maybe have a different climate. And sometimes too, I've learned that a lot of seeds are even grown in labs and they're not even, grown outdoors, which, to me, sort of like in my own thinking that, is a disruption in the connection and the flow of nature and natural things that transpire. And so, we want people to think about seed. We want people to act on seed, not just as consumers and the people that eat it, but the people that also caretake it, and also to bring back some of these old varieties, get them back on our tables, get them back in our diet and in our kitchens, because the truth is, I think we need them, for our health and for our well-being. But yeah, with the seed sanctuary, we need help in different ways as well. Like at the board level, it's all volunteers, and so we have been working on grant writing and different things because we hope to get some staff. And we want to get some staff, because that we want to work on the longevity of this initiative. That is not just going to go away in 2 years, or that our aspirations are that this goes on for many generations, if possible. Maybe not exactly on this site, but certainly that this kind of work and teaching will keep going. And so, so one of the things that we have had some volunteers helping with more recently is some grant writing. We are looking for someone that would like to be a bookkeeper for us, because we, as a board, we have so much on our plate, and we're realizing that as we go further down as we pursue this vision and we work on the strategic plan, that we need certain kinds of help to help the board be able to do their jobs best, right? So we need different kinds of technical support. Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it's like if you have a special desire, or if you have feel a special connection to this, let us know what your gifts are, and we can help find a place to put them to work, because we're such a new organization, and we're really so very small right now, and that we have certainly come a long way since we formed in 2017 to get this far. So I hope that answers that.
Definitely. No, that's great. And I can already think of a few people that I might be sending your way. So, but a few questions have come in. So Susan is asking, or has also said, and I think a lot of people can relate to this. So many of us are getting anxious to get into our gardens and start planting. You mentioned traditional knowledge and stars. Do you have advice for when we should start planting our vegetables?
Well, that is not an easy question, but it's a great question and I love it. So I'll try to answer it a bit without going on too long. How are we for time, Jess?
I mean, as we are
Okay.
recording, if people need to leave, feel free to depart, and we can go over the questions, and we can always send out the digital file later. So as long as you have the time, Janice, we can stay on indefinitely.
I certainly do. I have a bit more time for sure, but I would really like to try to tackle this question because it's such a great one. But this is going to be such a short answer, really. It's not. So to me, there are two kinds of crops. There are your cold crops that are for the spring, early spring. And then there are your hot crops or your warm crops, that things that don't really like it until we got the warmer weather. So right now I'm just taking a peek at my calendar. And so today is just after the new moon. And so when we follow the moon, I'll try to do this quickly, but the moon cycle has 4 parts. And we talk about the moon cycle as the box turtle shell has, so if we look at a turtle shell, it has 13 squares on the back, and then it has 28 small square plates around the edge. And then if you turn it upside down, there are 4 plates in the center, in the middle of the belly, or that protect the belly. So on the back of the turtle, those 13 squares represent 13 moons. And they say that we have 13 moons in a year. So not every year has 13 moons exactly, but most do. So even though our calendar shows 12 months, but there's actually 13 moons. So that is the cycle sort of that we follow. And then the 28 plates around the outer edge of the turtle shell, those are for the 28 days in the cycle. So it's a 28-day cycle that the moon follows across the sky. And when so yesterday was what we call the new moon. And the new moon, there is no moon. So if you were out last night, you would have noticed maybe there was no moon at all in the sky. So during the new moon, there's either 1 or 2 nights of completely no moon. She doesn't show herself at all. And I always say that's the best time for stargazing and for looking at the constellations, because there's no moonlight to wash that out. And so you can see the stars so much more clearly. So in the next night or two, what you're going to see, probably to the west, low in the sky, you're going to see just a sliver of moonlight. And that sliver of moonlight is signifying that you can go ahead and start to plant. Now, having said that, I also said there's 2 kinds of crops, hot and cold. And so you have to keep that in mind. Some things it's not quite warm enough for yet, but you can go ahead and plant things under the ground. Like, so if you're just planting seeds, you could go ahead with that. If you're doing transplants, you would wait closer to the full moon, or you might even wait till the next moon phase just to catch the warmer weather. But so my husband and I on Saturday, our plan, if the weather is right, is to plant our corn. And so corn takes a bit of time to germinate. And so by the time it comes up out of the ground, we should be past the threat of frost. So that's sort of just gives you a little sense of like what I mean about planting. And so like my tomato plants, which I started inside, so now they're a nice size seedling. I probably won't take those outside. What's happening with them right now is what we call hardening off. But I might not even transplant mine outside until close to the full moon, because you want to make sure that they're not just going to get hit by frost once you put them out there. But the seeds, if they're under the soil, are protected where a plant wouldn't be. So tomatoes and peppers, we start them usually inside because they're hot crops. They need a bit of a head start. And then we transplant them out when the weather is warm enough. But then other things like corn and squash and beans, we just direct seed them outside, looking at this time of year. But earlier, if you're trying to utilize the full season with your cold crops, such as radish, onion, what else is cold? Potato. You can go earlier. So some of our planting we already did. Like I have tiny radishes growing and little peas are already growing. So we just try to take advantage of the fullness of the season. And so those cold crops we do in the spring and in the fall. And the hot crops, those are the ones we caretake through the summer. I hope that's helpful. I hope that gives you some fun information about how we're influenced by constellations and the sky and the moon. But we also factor in, like, so as we're paying attention to those things, we also factor in day length and heat of the day. So it's not that we're only focusing on the moon herself, but because we know the moon is going to cycle all year, but that doesn't mean every time there's a claw that you can plant. Like in the winter, you can't go planting in the winter. So we know that we also pay attention to the heat of the day and the length of the days. And then that information coordinates with the moon. And then that's how we determine when it's time to plant. But we also watch for signs in nature. Like if you're driving around these last few days at all, or have been outside, you might see these beautiful wild plums everywhere in blossom. Those white blooms, that's what it is. It's wild plum. And wild plum is one of the indicators that's telling us it's getting warm enough, because we won't be out if it wasn't, right? So there's things in nature that just help to guide us along with the constellations. So I just want to visit the moon cycle again really quickly in its 4 parts, because the month is 4 parts. So there's 13 moons or 13 months, 28 days in each cycle, and then 4 parts to each moon phase. So each moon phase. So in those 4 parts, from the claw, which is after the new moon, and that's that sliver of light, we call it the claw, because it looks like one, right? So the claw till a couple days before the full moon, you can plant anything that's leafy green or fruits above the soil. A day before the full moon, and probably the day after, we don't really do too much of anything at that point, because we just want to honor the power of the moon, because she's in sort of like the pinnacle or the middle of her cycle at that point. So she's quite powerful. And so we try not to do a lot then, because it's just a way of showing respect. But then after that, after the full moon, then we start to look to the things that grow under the ground, like potatoes, onion, carrot. So now it's time to focus on the below ground plants, the ones that fruit below. And so that part of the moon only lasts about about 5 days. So from the claw to the full moon, you have about 12 days. So she's very generous in her cycle and gives you time to get things done, but also gives you time to take a break. Then the full moon comes, you take a break. Then after the full moon, you have about 5 days to do your below ground. And then in the last part of the 4 phases, we say that time is not really for planting, because the pull of the moon is at her very lowest point at that time. And so what that tells us that then is our activity changes from planting to tending. So instead of being planting, now we're tending, we're making amendments to soil, we're being on the land, but we're not necessarily planting. Now you can follow that or not, and that's okay. Some people plant and things are fine. But every once in a while I'll meet someone and say, boy, I tried your planting by the moon and I'll never go back, because it was, even though they had been successful gardeners in the past, what they found was that when they were able to coordinate with the moon, that it even made their gardens even more productive and better, because they were working with the natural cycles and planting with those elements in mind. So I don't know that this has been a great answer to the question, but certainly like something that I felt like I could share. It's such a big question. And I thought I saw a thing that said if we would be having workshops. And I want to say yes, that's one of the things that we try to do, is we try to host workshops throughout the year that are hands-on experiential learning opportunities on seed saving. So whether it be like how to harvest and choose certain things for seed keeping, and how to sort seeds, and all of the different aspects. And we do have a Facebook page that is a little more active right now than our website. And so if you are on Facebook, we're Kenhteke Seed Sanctuary, and we try to post there things that are happening and little updates if you want to follow us. And sometimes there's informational videos and sometimes just informational photos, and we hope to inspire people.
Yeah, that was Donna that asked that question about workshops. And she also asked if you have any tips on stratification.
I don't even know if I know what stratification is.
I don't know either, which is what I was like, I don't. maybe Donna can tell us in the chat. But I also had another question about the sort of the future, and that kind of ties into the workshops as well. But the idea of, what are sort of, as your co-chair of Ratinenhayenthos, you're, member of the board, and working on a strategic plan, sort of what will that strategic plan include maybe for the next few years in terms of the future plans of the sanctuary?
So thank you for asking that, Jess. So we do have kind of like the 3, 5, 7, and 10-year goals in mind. What we have been asked, like in being having use of the land, is that after 10 years, we do a review to see, where we are with everything. But some of the things that we hope that we can make steps towards is having a greenhouse on site, having a small place for an office for our staff, and for this, and so right now we are trying to work on a seed drying room. It's actually almost finished, and it's just basically a shelter for bringing stuff, kind of transitioning from the garden to other spaces where they just need to be taken in out of the weather. So it's nothing fancy. It's a very simple building. And we're also our plan is to add on to both ends, one end to have a composting toilet and one end to be a shed for garden tools, which is really needed as well. But we hope to have it, like I said, we hope to have a greenhouse and to be able to finish our little building. We don't have any hydro, electricity, or water, running water on the site. So we're setting up a water collection system like on our shed for now. But we work with other community groups as a way to try to meet some of the needs of the seed sanctuary right now. So our Kenhteke library, they're our public library. It's a secure location. And so they house the seed collection there. And that's something we really wanted to make sure it was in a public space, not in someone's private home, or because it is owned by the community. And so it resides there and that's where we go to get the seeds. And before COVID, we were able to hold our seed saving workshops there. And Jess has been there. It's a nice space for gathering. And hopefully we'll be able to use that space again in the future. But right now, a lot of the seed work has had to go home with volunteers in order to be carried out with COVID happening. But some of our, so part of that 3, 5, 7, and 10 years, so we're already at the 3-year mark. And so we had planned that we had hoped to be able to reach the 50 varieties by our 3rd year, because part of that planning was to make sure that we were able to grow the entire collection out in the proper time frame. And so part of that planning is the increase of varieties, but then also part of that planning is the infrastructure that's actually needed for the jobs and tasks and activities of the seed sanctuary. So we do need to start looking at that in a big way, especially since we hope to have some staff soon that we can, hire, and that they will be helping to raise funds and do the proposal writing and grant writing and those kind of activities. I guess part of our plan also is to keep assessing the natural ecosystem around us at the site. We want to be able to label or put labels with some of the trees and vegetation that's there, not just, I think I mentioned that earlier. This is a seed sanctuary. It's about the gardens and the seeds, but we also want to guardian the entire site and honor it as a community green space, and to help people just connect with the land and be more informed about what's on the land that we live on, the kind of natural things that are there, and including like we hope to post signs like about the bobolink and so many different things that we have planned. But those are some of the things that come to my mind right away, because eventually we're going to have a driveway and an access point and all of that. But like I said, we want to take our time and be as gentle on the land as possible. We don't want to overdevelop the site. Rather, we want to sort of be the opposite, but figuring out how we do that in the most respectful way. And so even the facilities wasn't really an issue, because we had planned that, and we had gotten permission that people could use the administration building washroom instead of us having to build a washroom facility at the site, because it's only a short walk to get there. And that was all working fine until COVID came. And now, because buildings are restricted access, it's not that liberal. And so we can't just do that now. So now we are planning a composting toilet, like I said. So some of the plans have had to be adapted to the situations and to our own needs, because when we first received the seeds, we had a very, very small grant, $30,000 that we were working with, very small budget. And we were very grateful that the sisters were able to help by providing Kate to us half time in the first season. That was part of their gift that came with the seeds. So that was really tremendous, because that said some things to us. This is not just reconciliation or an act of reconciliation. It's that we want you to be successful in this undertaking. And so that was something that we really appreciated the sisters doing in that very first year. And so our second year, we were really afraid last year. We didn't know how we were going to be able to make it work and to be able to cover all the costs. And we were fundraising and doing awareness. And at that point, we had been grant writing, but we hadn't received any new grants. And we had to start reaching out to as many places as possible to ask for support. And luckily we met Sovereign Seeds, and we were able to get some support from an organization called Seed Change. And they have an office in Ottawa, but they do international seed work. And in the past few years, they've started to notice the help that's needed here in Canada amongst Indigenous people and their seed sovereignty. And so they've been starting to do some work on that front, and they were able to help us. And we were able to come up with a budget of about $25,000. And that got us somehow magically, got us through last season. And we're just really proud of the hard work. We're proud of our gardener for sticking with us through thick and thin. That's how much she cares about the seeds and their well-being as well as she cares about our youth and wants to help teach them. So she's, really done a lot to try to accommodate us and yet be our employee. So it's really amazing the kind of people that are involved. And then this year, we were successful with a couple of grants. So we actually just had to revise our budget. Our goal was to reach 50,000, and we just hit that. We just hit it about a month ago, and we were so excited because that means an operational year with the bare bones, but still operational. And then we were contacted just recently about another grant, and so I think we are at 90,000, and so we had to revamp, and we're hoping that we are able to hire a youth intern to work with our gardener for the first time, which we are just ecstatic about. And the way that we it's not a huge budget, but we're hoping that we can hire someone to be a coordinator, at least part-time or something, so that we can, like I said, get some of the help that the board needs as well, with just the operational things and answering emails, and there's just so much to this, and we'll be just so grateful to start having some staff, because like I said earlier, to us, this really has to do with the longevity. We need people available all the time to field questions and do presentations and to help our gardener and to access funding. So all of these are part of the steps in our plan. And of course, what our hope is that we have at least 5 youth interns. That's our goal, that we want 5 to 7 active interns that are learning the collection, so that when our gardener, or if she ever, needs to go or retires, that we will have our own local people that are willing and ready to help and take it over. But we also maybe might need more help, because we also feel the need to expand the collection. So the collection sits at 300 varieties. But at one time it had 400 varieties, and we would like to see those varieties come back into the collection. So some of them became diseased and had to be let go for various reasons. And so there was, like I said, different challenges presenting. And so with any living things, we have to adapt, we have to make change, we have to try to be flexible and accommodate. So some of the items that we'd like to return to the collection are some of the potato varieties, because those are of interest to our community and I believe the surrounding area to have those in the collection. We are also expanding the amount of corn in the collection. There's currently only one corn, and we are a people of corn, the Ngwehue, and so we have many varieties of corn, and so we would like to bring some of those into the collection. But we are really thinking only ones that are more rare and need the conservation at this time. So that's sort of how we're bringing things into the collection, very slowly, very carefully, and trying to pace ourselves and do our research. And yeah.
You know, that actually, that's interesting that you brought that up, Janice, because that was my last question that I was going to ask too, about how you decide to bring items into the collection, or what is important. What are the important criteria for preservation? But I will say the last little question here in the, or the clarification rather, in the chat from Donna about stratification, which I did do a cursory Google on as well, is seeds needing a period of cold in order to open and so that they will flourish. She has used the fridge and then planted direct sow in fall. So I think it was tips on how perhaps the sanctuary does that with seeds that need to be cold prior to planting.
So I'm not sure exactly how much seeds in the collection requires that. I'm just trying to brainstorm really quickly, but I can't think of anything. But yeah, I do know there's like wildflowers and certain kinds of things that do require that. We certainly have perennials, like so in the fall, carrots were lifted and beets. And so they have already been replanted into so they were put in a storage over the winter to ensure that they remained alive, and they have been replanted, and then that will give them a chance to make their seeds. So right now we lack a lot of the infrastructure. So we do a lot of the things like our gardener does things at home. So probably about the stratification, it'd be best to put that question with her, because she knows the collection so well. But yeah, that's so interesting. And I actually, once you started telling me what it was, and I realized, oh yes, I know what that term is, but I guess I don't use it very much. I forgot.
Yeah, and I had never really thought about it as a non-gardener, had not thought about it in the gardening context. I was thinking, oh, classification of things or whatever, but yes, in the chat too, I think that's all for questions, but Donna wants to thank you, Janice, for your wisdom and generosity. And Renee also sent a comment about how inspiring the talk was. I think we can all agree that you're an incredible speaker, whether or not we can see you or not. It's just as engaging, just listening to you as well. So do you have any final thoughts, Janice, before we'll sign off this morning?
No, just that I have really enjoyed sharing, and I have enjoyed the questions, and yes, thank you very much.
And Susan says thank you as well, as does Dorothy, an investment in the future. So that is very, very, very true. And we're just so grateful to Janice for joining us this morning, and thank you all for attending. And again, if you think of anyone else in your lives that might be interested in seeing the presentation, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I can reach out with the digital recording. I'm hoping to share it a few more times over the course of the summer as well on our social media and various other avenues. But thank you again, everyone. I'll stop the recording now, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.